Hello, Freilich and Chanukah to everybody. I wanted to speak a little bit about my Chanukah. The Gemara in Shabbos on Daf Chaf Aleph Amud Beis asked the question, what is Chanukah? It's a rabbinic holiday. It's not mentioned in the Bible. It's what we call a Yontiv Midrabanan. And the question is, why do we celebrate it? What is it all about? And the Gemara indicates that the foundation of the holiday of Chanuka is that there was a small flask of pure oil that was discovered by the Chashmonaim when they came back to the site of the Beis Hamikdash after overcoming the Yevonim, the Syrian Greeks, and they wanted to light the menorah, but there was only one small flask of pure oil in the signet of the Kohen Gadol that was still available, and it only had enough oil to last for one night, and the miracle was that it lasted for 8 days, and because of that we celebrate Hanukkah for an 8-day period. So one obvious question which is mentioned is that during the Al Hanisim prayer we celebrate the fact that Masarta Giborim biyad Chalashim Rabim biyad Me'atim Utmeim biyad Tehorim V'sheim biyad Soasecha V'shim biyad Tzadikim V'zeidim biyad Oskei Soasecha, that we celebrate the conquest of the war. So why does the Gemara focus on the miracle of the oil? And the answer can really be derived from a further question which is posed by the Pnei Yehoshua. Pnei Yehoshua asks the question, why is it that they needed pure oil altogether? We know there's a principle of Tuma Hutra B'tzibur, that when one has to perform a mitzvah which is incumbent upon the entire congregation, and there wouldn't be pure oil available, it would be permissible based on the principle of Tuma Hutra B'tzibur that impurity can be allowed for purposes of performing a public mitzvah in the Beis Hamikdash, that the impure oil could have been utilized for the mitzvah. They didn't need to have the pure oil. So why is this something that has to be underscored? Why does this become a cause for celebration altogether? Never mind the major source as to why we celebrate the holiday of Hanukkah. So Chaim Shmulevitz explains that this is precisely why. This is the foundation of the celebration of Hanukkah, because the miracle of the military victory was something that was necessary. God already promised us that He's not going to spurn us and abandon us forever, that He's going to be there for us in order to rescue us from our enemies. So the military victory was something that had to happen. However, the oil is precisely because we didn't need to have pure oil for all 8 days, and yet HaKadosh Baruch Hu provided us with that pure oil for the entire 8-day period. So this was an extra act of affection, of neshika, like a kiss that HaKadosh Baruch Hu was giving us, like a parent who's putting a child to sleep. So of course the parent has to go through the bedtime and nighttime ritual of saying goodnight, going over the Shema with the child, and then turning out the light and saying and leaving the room. But the parent who goes over to the child and gives a little extra kiss, a little extra expression of affection, that shows the child that the parent isn't only just doing their job, but the parent really loves the child. The parent has a special affection for the child, and that is the reason for celebration. That's the reason why this was established as a yontiv, because the Kadosh Baruch Hu didn't only rescue us from our enemies. The Kadosh Baruch Hu provided us with an extra measure of affection to show this special relationship. between HaKadosh Baruch Hu and the Jewish people. So you can ask, what caused us to merit such a thing? So at the opposite end of the equation, the way in which the Chashmonaim conducted themselves really caused them to be worthy of this extra measure of affection that was bestowed by HaKadosh Baruch Hu. Because what was the attitude of the Chashmonaim? There's a medrash. It's a hard medrash to find, but it's quoted by the Chassam Sofer that contrasts Hadudaim nas nureach. There's a pasuk in Shir Hashirim that says the mandrakes gave forth a nice flavor. We know the story of Reuven and the Dudaim, so the medrash says this is a reference to Reuven. But on our doorposts, you will find all kinds of delicious dishes. And that is a reference, at least according to one application of the Medrash, to Neros Chanuka. It's a reference to Neros Chanuka, the mezuzah, the mitzvahs that are on the doorpost. And the Pardes Yosef asks, what is the contrast between Reuven and the Neros Chanuka? So the Pardes Yosef answers, well, Reuven, we know in the story that we read just last Shabbos about how he wanted to rescue Yosef from the nefarious plan of his brothers to kill him, but ultimately Reuven wasn't successful. He went home and he came back and Yosef wasn't there anymore. He wasn't able to effectuate the full rescue that he had anticipated. He stopped them temporarily from killing Yosef, but his solution was to throw Yosef into the pit where the Chashim Rakrabim Yeshbo, he could have died anyway inside of the pit. So he had good intentions, but he wasn't able to carry them through to fruition. Masha Enken, in contrast to the Neros Chanuka, that stands for what the Chashmonaim did. The Chashmonaim went after their adversaries, they went after their enemies, and they stood up and they weren't going to compromise or give in, no matter what. Mila Shem Elai, they insisted upon fighting the battle until they would achieve victory. And therefore, they were able to not only have good intentions, but they were able to actually effectuate results. What was it that enabled the Chashmonaim to be more successful in this respect? So there's a medrash in Rus Rabbah that says that had Reuven known that it would be recorded in the Torah V'yatzileu mi'adam that he effectuated at least a partial rescue, well, if he knew that this was going to be recorded, then he would have taken Yosef on his shoulders and he would have run back all the way home with Yosef on his shoulders to return Yosef to his father, had he only known the level of publicity this would receive. And that itself is a curious comment by the Medrash, because since when do we have a notion of Reuven being some type of an attention seeker, that he only cared about the spotlight and being headline news? That presumably was not the characteristic of Reuven. So the Siach HaSadeh Perish on the Siddur explains that the explanation behind this medrash is that, like it says in the davening, Avdo b'leivav shalim, that there's a notion of serving God b'leivav shalim, with a leiv shalim, that Reuven wanted to do the right thing, but when the Medrash says that he would have done more had he realized it would be recorded, it means he didn't understand the monumental nature of what he had the capacity to accomplish. He didn't understand the impact of this historical moment and how significant it was for him to carry through his plan and to succeed. He didn't understand in a broad cosmic sense what a significant role he had the potential to play. But the Chashmonaim understood this. The Chashmonaim had a comprehension that what they were doing was not just a temporary victory over an enemy at that time and in that locale in some insignificant point in the historical spectrum, but that they were involved in an eternal battle, and that what they were going to accomplish would have eternal ramifications. And therefore, because they had that mindset, they had a much greater passion, what we'll call the Lev Shalem, and they were able, therefore, to effectuate the proper results. And the message is that in every instance in which we're involved in a mitzvah, in every instance in which we're involved in an effort to sanctify God's name, to overcome forces that are around us that would threaten to extinguish our ability to serve HaKadosh Baruch Hu fully, we can't just view it as something which is private, or something which is passing, or something which is of an insignificant nature on a historic scale. But rather, we have to recognize that every single moment, every single mitzvah opportunity has epic proportions and epic ramifications. And therefore, we have to thrust ourselves into it completely. And this is the nature of our neshika, of our demonstrating to HaKadosh Baruch Hu our tremendous love and affection, that we're not going to lose the opportunity to do mitzvah. We're not going to lose the opportunity to elevate ourselves and to provide greater kedusha to our lives and to our surroundings. And this is why I believe that even though the Gemara talks about 3 different levels of how one can fulfill the mitzvah of lighting the Chanuka candles, there's some Ner Yishuv Beso, there's Mahadrin, and then there's Mahadrin Min HaMahadrin. You look in Shulchan Aruch, really all that's discussed is Mahadrin Min HaMahadrin, that we perform the mitzvah in the most optimal possible fashion. We start the first night with 1 candle, and we go up to 2 candles, and then 3 candles, and we even go further, and we make sure that every single member of the household lights in ascending order of candles every single day, in order to demonstrate that we recognize the importance and the enormity of this mitzvah opportunity, and that we have this special level of love and affection for HaKadosh Baruch Hu and for mitzvos. And this is the way in which we should strive to be inspired by Chanukah to conduct ourselves throughout the entire year, in connection with every single mitzvah that we do, in connection with every single moment in our lives in which we have the opportunity to do the right things, both bein adam l'makom and bein adam l'chavero, to make sure always to do it b'leiv shalem, always to do it with a full heart, and always to do it with a complete passion, so that we can always be able to enjoy the benefits of this love affair that we have with HaKadosh Baruch Hu, that we have with the Torah, that we should always be able to provide the neshikos and receive neshikos from HaKadosh Baruch Hu in return. Freilich and Chanukah.